Konnichiwa and welcome on to a Let's Play for a day, a game on once and afterwards nevermore. And today we got Bioshock Infinite. Yes, it's after all this retro rampage, it's finally time for a newer game. And it's pretty much probably the newest game I've ever done up to this point, but anyways. So, first of all, the most important thing, which you probably could be afraid of, this video is completely full of spoilers. This is fairly early into the game, like 2 or 3 hours in, and I also edited out a cutscene which had at least a little bit more major stories, so in case you still want to play this game, I think you won't get anything like huge reveal that in the end, like that the villain of this game in reality is truly an alien that wants to take over the world by religion. No, it's not anything like that. No. This video is full of spoilers, free of spoilers, of course. So don't you worry about that. So this game is actually one I've looked forward to such a huge time, because Bioshock 1 is probably my favorite shooter of all time. I've played the living bejeebus out of this game, and since I was really disappointed by Bioshock 2, which was just a huge disappointment. It was just a really annoying cash-in, which kind of screwed over everything that the first game established. But in Bioshock 1, it was really truly one of my favorite shooters. I would say it's pretty much my favorite shooter. And it's also still high on my 2LP list, because it's just a shooter that had so many interesting aspects, so much variety. The gaming world was beautiful. It just had this very unique thing about it that just made it so enjoyable. So, of course, my expectations were rather high towards Bioshock Infinite, and the gameplay trailers honestly didn't really, well, help me, because it just looked really scripted. It really made me feel like this is just going to be Call of Bioshock Steampunk Edition. Steampunk Warfare, because it really made it look like a modern war shooter game. It's just a 5-hour linear corridor fest with pre-scripted scenes up the ass, etc., and also with 2 weapon slots and that all crap. But luckily, I can tell you, most of that stuff is not true. Well, except the 2 weapon slot thing. But what can you do? But that's one thing I'm going to talk about during the course of this video. But otherwise, it's definitely not like I expected. You can see the game. I would say I really like it. It's definitely worse than Bioshock 1, though, because it's kind of like a degeneration going on. As you may know, Bioshock is the spiritual successor to System Shock 2, which was also a game Kevin Levine, I think, is the name of the designer, worked on. And it's actually fun how you can see this like degeneration, because System Shock 2 was more RPG than it was shooter. It had like let me think, it had like an inventory, it had like a whole skill system, it had so many little things like hacking, it had more, of course it had combat, but it was like it also had a research element as well, which required you to research, and the game was generally known as being very, very rude, and, no, not rude, very unforgiving. Then Bioshock came along and basically took the concept of System Shock 2 and made it more simple. They, for example, removed the hacking trait. They removed actually quite a lot of skill, the whole RPG system. They had like still upgrades or so, but it was not like with experience points, and instead it just had like these weapon upgrade stations, for example. You did not have an inventory anymore. You just automatically picked up stuff, and you had like only really a cap for medkits, and I just say it's mana potions, because in this game the mana is also called differently. So what the hoo-ha, I'm just gonna call it mana, because that's what it is. You cast magical spells, so you got mana. Period. And what else did it remove? It removed a lot of elements, and in Bioshock Infinite there comes another one, because it is even simpler than Bioshock. Because, for example, Bioshock Infinite only has 2 weapon slots now. There's now no inventory anymore whatsoever. The only thing you can basically collect is money and lockpicks. But you can see, for example, I don't have any. I can't collect any mana potions anymore or health potions. So it's basically just the only thing. For example, hacking has also been completely removed in System Shock 2. It was a oh hey ice cream. It was a skill you had to train. In Bioshock 1 it was a mini game, a rather annoying mini game, which basically is the only thing that Bioshock 2 did better because they made it like a quick time event. And here in Bioshock Infinite, hacking doesn't really exist anymore because there's nothing to hack anymore. There is like a possession spell you get, which makes machines friendly to you for a certain time, but otherwise hacking itself doesn't really exist anymore. And that's also true for many other things, like, phew, let me think. It's actually kind of hard. Web upgrades still exist, but for example, you don't have... yeah, there's still like upgrades, but for example, you don't need to buy upgrades anymore. You just you usually just get them, or you just buy them with money instead of like having an own currency. There was like EVE, which you had to get from, which you only got a limited amount of, and you had to get it basically from boss fights. And here it's just, well, you just buy every upgrade with money, period. And honestly, I have to say the simplification in this game was a little bit too much. For example, also I really feel it also in the story progression. This game, Bioshock 1 was basically you just jumped from hub section to hub section. You had like a bigger target, like a bit bigger objective, but you were still able to free roam around and do whatever you want to. And this game, it's way more linear. You sometimes have like sections like these where you can like roam around the city and maybe scrounge for like resources, or just take a look at the city, etc. But it's not really needed anymore, or it's not really necessary. You just can go to the next section, and there are later on in the game. The game is also way linear. It's kind of a shame actually, because I really liked in Bioshock 1. I really liked this exploring thing that you can like go all around, look for resources, and also find like, well, not really side quests per se, but just little things, little secrets you can get. And here the only thing you sometimes get is, for example, a little upgrade, but it's usually not even that well hidden. I have to say, some things are just hidden in plain sight, and it's just, I think they have lost a lot of potential. For example, in this game you also get like a shock weapon, a shock spell, and there's like 2 places right afterwards where you can use this shock thing to power something to open, and then it was never used again. It was really weird, because I first thought, oh my god, the second time I played it through, I was like, oh my god, I did not realize that I can open doors with that. I think I've missed so much stuff because I've never realized that, but I've honestly never seen it being used ever again. This is like the shock truck, if you can see. This is the Vigor. It's called Vigor in this game. In the Bioshock it was Plasmid, but like I said, it's just magic spell, period. And that's just something I find quite a pity. But one thing I really enjoy about Bioshock Infinite, which wasn't really there in Bioshock, is, as you can see, you could see that it was around with Elizabeth, and also had the chance to like get a explore Columbia a little bit. You can see everything is still peaceful, everything is still nice. You can still, they are, well, obviously looking for me, as you can hear by that PSA, but still it's nice to see this city being alive. This is one thing I found quite a pity about Bioshock, because when you enter Bioshock, everything is fucked up already, and you got no clue how the city actually looked like when it was still working. And here in Bioshock Infinite, you really got the chance to at least enjoy the city and have explore it a little bit. And also, it's also so made so much nicer with having a little companion, Elizabeth. I'll probably talk about her in a minute. But I have to say, the city just looks really gorgeous. It has that, oh god, let's say 19, I thought it's like 20, 30, 20, 30 or something like that. It just has this really nice feeling. I have to say they made this thing of city in the sky actually quite believable, which is pretty funny. But I just really enjoy like slendering through the city, looking at the little things and just, well, basically having a good time, because Bioshock Infinite is really a game that mainly lives through the story and not through the combat, but that's something I'll also talk about later on, because you can see everything looks pretty gorgeous, and I have to say it's a game I've really enjoyed visually, because it's just such a unique setting and place that it's just so nice to see and so nice to enjoy. And that's mainly one thing I most enjoy, especially with Elizabeth. Elizabeth is really just... At first I was really afraid when I heard about that she's like being the whole time with you, but for example you can see that she isn't really like something that needs to be protected. I'm in the middle of combat, she's just hiding, and sometimes she also supports. You can see that she threw cash towards me at one point, and during combat, for example, she gives you resources you need, like health or ammo for a weapon, or for example also salt or mana, like I said. And that's one thing that makes it really likable. Also, that she's really feels, well, useful. That she's not just something, well, some damsel in distress you just pull around the whole time when she's being annoying. But she proves to be very useful. For example, you could also see sooner in the video oh, I wanted to use the navigation here, but I forgot I was playing at highest difficulty. She really helps you out. She's really like an active character, and her character herself is actually, I have to say, really enjoyable. She's not particularly deep, but she's just a character, enough of a character that you actually care about her, which is, for example, like that. She just finds money and gives it to you. And I have to say, I found her really likable. It's never that she was like being in the way or annoying or anything, because she also provides a lot of exposition, for example, of all the events that happened, etc. And that's one thing I've really enjoyed about her. But like I said, the problem is that she's not particularly deep as a character. But especially one problem is also with these like contextual things, that when she finds money or so, it's just sometimes it kind of throws you off, because for example she has like a deep moment where she's sad about something, and then 1 minute later, oh hey, I found some money. It's just really kind of weird. Also, sure, the first time I saw her face, you kind of thought it's Uncanny Valley-esque, but I think it's just... But I've got used to it. First of all, it kind of reminded me of like a character. She's like a character from Corpse Bride or something. Also here I made a little cut because there was a cutscene that had like a little bit of story in there. But I really like her as a character. It's really nice to have her around, and she really, like I said, she provides a lot of story exposition, and it's quite interesting, I have to say. Now, about the combat. That's probably one thing you've already seen a little bit, and I have to say the combat is really kind of... I would say it's nice, but the combat is clearly designed for lower difficulties. That's the problem, because the combat has a lot of options. You can see you have like your magical spells, you got melee moves. There's also like some things called skylines, which I think we'll see in the video as well. There are like a lot of possibilities you can do in the combat, and that's one thing I particularly enjoy about it. You can be very creative, but the problem is I think it's not very well balanced, because in the end, I played on, like I said, the highest difficulty, and in the end, I just end up using ranged weapons like a sniper rifle and a carbine rifle, because close combat weapons are just basically suicide, because enemies do quite a lot of damage, and you can cheap them out fairly easily by using ranged combat. Also, one thing about the combat is that it doesn't, like I said, it allows for quite a lot of variety, but I actually wanted to talk about the gear up there, but I think I missed it. Or maybe I'll find it later. Let me see. Come on, get around. Yes, I know that's a... God damn it, go pick up the gear because I want to talk about the gear. Did I seriously miss it? I think I just went past that. Oh no, there we go. Now I found it. The gears, for example, they have like unique, there are like 4 slots and everything gives you like a different kind of gear. For example, I have the boots that give me health by melee kills. And you can really like adjust your own combat style with that. There are things like melee, weapon, for example, also skyline stuff. The problem is though that you can see currently I'm like kind of melee focused, but the problem is that those things are usually poorly balanced. There are some of them that are ridiculously ridiculously OP, overpowered. For example, the wheeling ones are really not particularly useful. I had like 4 things that enhance my melee things, melee strength equipped, and I still took me like 4 hits to take down a regular enemy, and it's just not that good. That's the problem. But on the other hand, I had like a one that kind of let me every time I gain a kill, my weapon gains 5 damage, and which completely and utterly broke the game. It was ridiculous. For example, as a machine gun, every single shot I fired did 5 more damage, and I guess every shot did like, I don't know, 15. So in the end, every single bullet I fired with this machine gun did like double or even triple damage, and it just completely ate through all the enemies, which was ridiculously overpowered. So, like I said, one thing I have to say, if you really want to enjoy the combat and really want to like test around and have your fun, for example, in the first Bioshock, that's actually the thing. The first Bioshock was not hard. It was really not hard. I played this game on hard, and it was not hard, and that's why you could like play around with all kinds of combat styles, like have like a preferential weapon, or for example, in melee was, for example, incredibly ridiculous in the first Bioshock, and it was so much fun to just bludgeon to death your enemies with a fucking wrench. And to do that in this game, you really have to put back the difficulty, because there are some enemies that just kick your ass. This is probably my biggest gripe, which I'll come to now, the 2-weapon system. The 2-weapon system in this game is just a horrible and stupid idea, because the problem is 2 weapon slots are just not enough. The problem is you can't have situational weapon with you. For example, you can't have an RPG with you, or a grenade launcher. For example, also a shotgun. In my first game playthrough, I used a shotgun and a sniper rifle. And the problem was I always ran out of sniper rifle ammo, but then I had to rely on my shotgun. And the problem is the shotgun just, well, is a situational weapon, because I used it, I was on range with my sniper rifle. I had to somehow go in close, and it just doesn't work. It's just something that I really didn't like about it, because you really need like 1 or 2 more weapon slots. And one other thing that really griped me is, for example, is that if you are out of ammo with a gun, you either have to go look for an ammo shop, which there are quite plenty, I have to say that. For example, now she throws me some health, but the thing is that if you run out of ammo, if you can't find a weapon shop, you just have to run around with an empty weapon, because the problem is you can only equip a weapon if you find it on the ground. For example, there's no like station. For example, if you can buy ammo for a gun, but you can't swap to that gun, you have to find the gun somewhere lying around. And I had really one situation where I had an upgraded gun. And I ran out of ammo, so I swapped it for something else, and I couldn't find this gun for like an hour, like half an hour of gameplay, and I had to run around with a crappy weapon, because the problem is you also have weapon upgrades you have to buy, otherwise your weapons won't do any damage. And if you don't have any weapon upgrades, your weapon won't do any damage. So, if you're in the middle of a bigger combat, for example, there's like one particular boss, which was probably the biggest, worst moment of this game, which is a boss that could spawn enemies, and you took a truckload of shots, so you were deemed to run out of ammo against this boss, because you constantly had to kill the things it spawned. And because I was constantly doing that, I ran out of ammo with my good guns. So I had to scrounge around the battlefield for a crappy gun. And those crappy guns did no damage because they were not upgraded. And it's just so poorly balanced. It was really a very, very poor decision to have like something like a 2-weapon slot system. It boggles my mind why they did that. And it's just really kind of obnoxious. Like I said, so it's better to play this on easier difficulty, so you can really have like more fun having it around. Because this game is really the focus on this game should really be the story instead of the combat. Because the combat is fun, but it's nothing you should take as a challenge. For example, I played through this game on hard, and then I played through it on the so-called 1999 mode, which is a reference to System Shock 2 and its ridiculous difficulty, which was generally just harder and more annoying. And also, I also did the achievement where you can't buy any ammo from the shop, which is possible, but it made the game a huge and annoying train wreck. And I wouldn't recommend it to anybody except if they're looking like 4D kind of kick. But like I said, I wouldn't recommend it. I would really play the game like a normal, and then you just can go wild, have fun, and just do whatever you want. Just try out different combat styles. For example, these other so-called skylines, where you later on will like be in the middle of the battlefield. So for example, instead of being somewhere stationary, you can like jump around on those, kill enemies from those, and I think it has a really nice feeling, these skylines. It's also one thing I really like about this game. Even though like I said, on higher difficulties, these relying on those things are kind of not good. I usually just camped in like a corner with my sniper rifle and just picked them off one by one. I possessed bigger enemies. You could see there was like this crow guy. There are like some bigger boss enemies. Some of them range from being completely and utterly jokes. For example, the crow guy is really not that hard. But there's one guy, for example, so-called handyman, which is probably the worst fucking thing. And this is also where the 2-weapon slot system is a huge problem, because this guy is a huge monkey jumping around, and I had a sniper rifle and shotgun with me. The sniper rifle, I would need to have aim accurately for hitting him in the heart, because he jumped around like an idiot, and it wasn't possible. So I try to use my shotgun, but he wrecks my shit on close range, and that's exactly the problem if you have a 2-weapon slot system. If I would have, for example, had like a third slot, for example, for a grenade launcher or something, then I would have been fine, but otherwise I just got pounded into the dirt by this guy over and over again until I reloaded the game, ran for the location where I remember was a grenade launcher, picked that thing up and killed him with that. And it's also kind of arbitrary because you can maybe use those vigors, those spells you have, but it's also very situational, because some of them don't work. For example, on the handyman, I think only those crow things work. Everything else has basically no effect whatsoever on it, and it's kind of annoying. Those enemies are really some of the worst things. Also, this is, by the way, the sniper rifle, probably the most overpowered gun in this whole game, because you can easily pick them up from range, they won't be able to kill you, etc, etc. But in conclusion, I have to say, even though I was bitching around this game quite a lot, I have to say I really like the game. For example, you can also like lay those spells as a trap like I did there, and that's also how I cheaped out the other boss, which really annoyed me and constantly spawned shit. But you can see you can also really be active and jump around, even though, like I said, this is not really possible in higher difficulties. But to come to a conclusion, I had my huge fun with Bioshock Infinite. It was a great and very entertaining game. And honestly, I can dearly recommend Bioshock Infinite to you. It's probably one of my favorite game this year, I have to say, even though I was currently bitching around like, I don't know. But it has, like I said, those things I've complained about that are smaller things, You can see that you probably got like an impression, even though I never talked about it in particular, that it has like a lot of emphasis on the world, with those audio logs, with those story bits, and it just, yes, it's just very enjoyable. So if you ever get your hands on Bioshock Infinite, it will be well worth the money, and there's still DLCs coming up. Maybe they will actually improve anything, but well, we'll see that. So I was your host, I was Kaushmar, and Au revoir.